Hi Eric. My video is going to be divided into 3 parts. Part 1, you scratch your beard a lot. Does that mean that it itches? And if it itches, I have a question. Is it itchier when it's long, or when it's just starting to grow out and it's all stubbly? Like I know for women, when, armpits and legs, they itch more as they're growing. Part 2, Poem Friday. My body does weird things, prompting bereft-type sighs. Some things I'll list are true, you distinguish the lies. When I have a fever, the only way to know is not by feeling my head, but how hot my breath blows. Or how's about my knees? At 22 they pop, but not sporadically. They pop my candy shop. That's not the only noise that puzzles up my brain. My stomach turns so loud, none in public can feign. And what about that joke, that old men's ears grow hair? They're not the only ones. At least my hair is fair. Those are 4 weird things my limbs may or may not do. Well, none were limbs per se. But still, which were lies? True? And part 3, Will Grasyson. Will Grasyson. So, I have my list of things, and I'll just be reading off of them and commenting as is appropriate. First little bullet point, Nick and Nora. Apparently, that movie, I haven't actually seen it, but it was based off of a book that David Levithan wrote. Interesting, I didn't realize that. Bullet number 2, if I can read it. Yeah, that wasn't important. Okay, so for the most part, I'll just divide it into angsty Will and teenage Will. Angsty Will and other Will. How's that? Okay. So, ooh, it's a bug. So, angsty Will was ridiculously angsty. Like, I had trouble with him too. The thing is, I mean, he was clinically depressed, so I don't want to say anything yes or no about the angst, because I've never been clinically depressed, so I don't know what it's really like. Like, it could be a supremely accurate depiction. But, I mean, if a person who had been depressed read it, and like, they would just have a better way of saying their opinion of it. So I really just don't want to, I wasn't a huge fan of the angst, but who am I to judge, basically. I did love one of his lines. He'd found a stain near the bottom of his shirt, and he'd hoped it was OJ, but quote-unquote, but it's probably from when I tucked before I tapped. Now, I'm sure that David Levithan didn't come up with the term tucked before tapped, but I just loved it. I also linked Angsty Will's, that chapter of Epiphany, where, like, he tells his mom he loves her, and Tiny's got that whole appreciation monologue. Like, I don't know, I just thought that was well written, and just kind of touching. Could just be me. And I think that's all I've got on Angst Will. Yes, that's Angst Will. For other Will Grasyson, I have a soft spot for John Green. I do. All of his main characters, his narrators, are Dan Brownishly, sorry, I just totally moved there was something on my arm, I felt like it was a bug. Anyway, they are Dan Brownishly similar. They are all the same sort of awkward, uncertain boys who eventually get a girl, but keep screwing it up because they just don't know what they're doing, and it's a John Green kind of boy. But they are adorable. I have to give that to them. Green's writing also usually has some sort of clear proverb that kind of rings through the story, and in the story it was truth, which is kind of ironic because of the poem that I just did. But he pretty much summed it up with, if you don't say the honest thing, it never becomes true. Which, I don't know, I just really like that, because I've read quotes around that before in different books recently, so it may just be a theme, but it's one of those things that I've been feeling for a while now, that if, you can have the greatest intentions, but if you don't act on them, then what good is it, sort of thing. I don't know, I have that sort of problem with people, I suppose. If it means that much to you, then act on it. And, I don't know, there are probably other things for me to talk about, but those are what I took notes on. Those are the basics. Stop blowing away, paper. I don't know, I feel like I've read better YA books, but I've also read worse. So there's that. And that's, I suppose, what I got. So I'm gonna go eat dinner. Cheers! Whew, that's right. I had a point that I forgot. You'd been talking about how you didn't care so much for Tiny, and I can completely understand, because it is, think about what you're gonna say, Christine. Because, well, you don't care much for the stereotypical gay, and Tiny is the stereotypical gay. I'm the same way. I don't care much for them either. But I feel like that was sort of a captured the attention of the mass group of people, because that's the stereotype and that's what people are going to understand, sort of. I mean, other Will Grayson sort of balanced out the stereotype, the gay stereotype equation, I imagine. Well, sort of. Meh. I had a really good point about this that I was going to talk about, but I don't remember what. I guess that's all you're getting.